Hi class, our next topic is vector components and describing motion. We will discuss first the vector and scalar quantities. So, ano nga bang pinagkaiba ng scalar sa vector? So, ang scalar ay merong magnitude, which is, for example, 23 meters and 5 kilograms. While vector, meron itong magnitude and direction. For example, 23 meters upward and 5 kilogram east. So, ang pinagkaiba ng scalar at ng vector ay ang scalar may magnitude lang at ang vector may magnitude at direction. An arrow represents a vector. So, yung tail niya ay yung origin, then yung body niya ay andun yung magnitude. Then, yung head niya ay nakapoint sa direction ng vector. So, for example, we have here 5 kilogram east. So, yung arrowhead niya ay nakapoint sa east direction. The next one is 5 kilogram south. Yung head niya nakapoint sa south. Then, the next one is 5 kilogram north. Then, 5 kilogram west. So, the first vector's tail is located in the origin. Then, yung arrowhead niya ay nakapoint sa east. So, yung first vector or yung vector A ay papunta sa east until nag-stop siya sa certain magnitude. Then, from east, ang next direction ay towards north. Second vector is towards north until maabot niya na yung final location. So, to get the resultant, so yung concern lang ng resultant ay from the original position, which is here, hanggang sa final position lang. So, i-connect mo lang from original to final position at magkakaroon ka na ng resultant. So, wala siyang pakialam kung ilang beses lumiko, huminto yung vector. So, for example, pumunta ng east, north, then west. So, ang i-measure mo lang is this one. Ano po? Yun lang yung resultant mo, yung original position and yung final position. There are two methods sa pag-add ng vectors, which are the graphical methods and through Pythagorean theorem. So, medyo complicated yung graphical methods kasi kailangan ng actual measurements and hihirapan tayong i-discuss through online. So, mag-focus na lang tayo sa Pythagorean theorem. So, our equation is r squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So, yung r squared is yung longest side or yung hypotenuse, which is the resultant. And yung a and b, pwede naman silang magkapalit. Okay po. So, to simplify, para mas madali sa pag-solve, meron siyang simplified formula. So, square both side para makuha natin yung r. O yung resultant is equal to square root of a squared plus b squared. So, na-discuss naman na natin kung ano yung adjacent, opposite, at yung kung ano gagamitin sa SOHCAHTOA, tangent. Pero kalimitan yung ginagamit is tangent. Kasi given na yung opposite at yung adjacent sides. Okay po. So, let's have some examples. So, we have given values, which is the first vector is 5, the second is 3, then we are looking for the resultant or displacement. So using our equation, r squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, so we just substitute the given value. So r squared is equals to 3 squared plus 5 squared. So, pwede naman magkabaliktad, like 5 squared plus 3 squared, o wala namang mangyayaring kakaiba. Or the answer is still the same. So, 3 squared is equal to 9, 5 squared is equal to 25, so 9 plus 25 is 34. So, para makuha natin yung r, gagawin natin is square root of 34. So, r is equal to square root of 34 or 5.83. So, using our simplified formula, so kung makikita nyo mas madali, no? Ita-type nyo lang. So, r is equal to a squared plus b squared. So, using our simplified formula, r is equals to square root of a squared plus b squared. So, parehas din naman, pero na simplified na siya, then r is equals to 5.83. So, using your calculator, ito muna yung tignan natin. So, iisa-isahin nyo yung pag-solve dito, dito, at dito. Then, pagdating dito, you can type square root. Makikita nyo naman yun sa function ng calculator nyo. Square root of 34. So, square root, then, itatype nyo lang yung 34. Then, equal. So, dito naman, itatype nyo na agad yung square root. Ano po? Then, 3 raised to 2. So, yung raised to 2, yung x, tapos may 2 sa taas. Yan yung squared. So, plus 5 squared. So, equals mo lang. Then, lalabas na yung sagot na square root of 34 or 5.83. So, let's have another example. A driver got lost on his way. He travels 12 kilometers west and 5 kilometers south. What is the total distance traveled and the driver's displacement? So, para mas madali kayong mag-solve, kukunin niyo muna yung given. O, ano nga ba yung given? 12 kilometers west, then 5 kilometers south. Then, ano ba yung required? So, yung una is distance traveled at yung pangalawa ay yung displacement. So, yung formula is, for displacement is yung kanina, r is equal to square root of a squared plus b squared, or kung gusto nyong isa-isahin, r squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So, our solution, so kukunin muna natin yung unang required, yung distance travel. So, pag distance travel yung pinag-uusapan, ang gagawin nyo lang ay i-add nyo lang yung distance, yung dalawang distance or more. So, So the first distance is 12 kilometer west. So 12 kilometer plus the second distance, which is the 5 kilometers. So 17 kilometers yung total distance travel. So sa displacement naman, R is equal to 12 squared plus 5 squared. So, wait lang, may mali pala dito. Sorry, wala na itong squared. Ano po? Hindi ko natanggal. Wala na itong squared kasi tapos na-squared na natin. So, i-add nyo lang. So, square root of 169 or 13. So, to get the direction, so kukunin natin yung direction ng resultant. So, gagamitin natin tangent. Theta is equal to opposite, which is 5. Then, adjacent, which is 12. So, tan theta is equal to 5 over 12, or 5 over 12 is equal to 0.42. So, arctan. So, nalasan na natin to, diba? Pero dito, theta is equal to arctan 0.42 or theta is equal to 25.31. So, using your calculator, diba? So, meron ka ng tan theta is equal to 0.42, sorry. So, itatype nyo lang shift, then tan, shift, then tan, ito yung lalabas. Then, type 0.42, then equal. So, ito na yung makukuha nyong sagot. So, the resultant is 13 kilometer, 25.31 degrees southwest. So, southwest siya. Ano po? In between south and west. Let's discuss the vector component. This item is from your module. So, problem number 1, engage. Your ship sailed west from Baybay as the starting position to Camotes at a speed of 4 knots, or 4 knots, and sailed again south going to Taliban at a speed of 5 kn. Find the resultant speed if your ship sailed directly traveled from Baybay to Taliban. So, before analyzing it, kunin muna natin yung given. So, yung given niya is 4 kn west. So, from Baybay to Camotes is west. So, yung Baybay ay nasa east of Camotes, yung Camotes nasa west ng Baybay. So, another one is 5 kn south. So, Camotes to Taliban. So, from Camotes, pupunta ng south to Talibon. Sorry. So, required is resultant speed if directly traveled from Baybay to Talibon. So, i-analyze natin yung problem. Sabi raw dito, yung ship daw naglayag pa west, no? From Baybay, yung starting point niya ay Baybay. Then, papuntang Camotes. So, kung yung Baybay ay dito, yung Camotes ay papunta sa west. So, this one. So, ano daw yung speed ng ship galing sa Baybay papuntang Camotes? So, 4 kn. So, galing Camotes, naglayag ulit yung bangka papunta sa Talibon. So, pa-south naman. With a speed of 5 km. Ano po? So, sabi dito, find the resultant speed if your ship sailed directly traveled from Baybay to Talibon. So, may next scenario. Paano raw yung speed or yung resultant speed ng boat kung magta-travel daw ito from Baybay directly to Talibon. So, hindi na siya pupuntang Camotes. Yun yung hinahanap nating resultant speed. So, using our formula, R is equal to square root of 4 squared yung isang side, squared, ano pa, plus 5 squared then our answer is R is equal to, so using your calculator, type square root, then type 4, then squared, plus 5, then squared, then equals, so meron tayong 6.4. So let's write here 6.4 km. So, kukunin natin yung direction ng resultant. Kunin natin yung angle theta. So, gagamitin natin, meron tayong opposite at adjacent. So, gagamitin natin ay tangent theta is equal to, so tangent theta is equal to 5/4 or 1.25. So using your calculator, type shift tan, then type 1.25, then equals. So makukuha nyo ay 55 degrees. So, our resultant is 6.4 km, 55 degrees south of west. So next, we are going to get the x and y component. So since given na yung resultant natin 50, then may angle tayong 23 degrees. So, yung kukunin natin ay yung y component, which is the vertical component, then the x component, or the horizontal component. Since meron na tayong r at meron na tayong angle, at yung kukunin natin ay yung x and y, ano kaya yung gagamitin nating function para makuha yung y component? So, yung y component ay yung opposite nitong angle theta. So, yung y is yung opposite, and then meron na tayong hypotenuse. So, what function are we going to use? Yes, sine function. So, sine 23, so 23 is the angle, is equal to opposite, which is the y component over the resultant, or 50. So, through cross multiplication, so y is equal to 50 sine 23. Using your calculator, type 50 sine 23. So the answer is 17.67 meters yung y component. So meron tayong y component, kunin naman natin yung x component. So since yung x component ay located sa adjacent, so gagamitin natin ay cosine. So cosine 23 is equal to adjacent, or the x component, over the hypotenuse, which is the 50. So we need to cross multiply. So x is equal to 50 cosine 23. So using your calculator, type 50 cosine 23, then equals. So the answer is 46.77 meters yung x component. The x component for this problem is 46.77 meters. Then the y component is 17.67 meters. The resultant is 50 meters at 23 degrees north of west. Next is we have 77.4 meter per second squared at 79 degrees south of west. So ito yung resultant natin. So kukunin natin yung x and y component. Since given na yung 79 degrees angle, then may resultant na tayong 77.4. Kukunin natin ay yung x and y component. So, what function are we going to use? Parehas lang, sine and cosine. So, sine 79 is equal to opposite, which is y, over hypotenuse, which is 77.4. So, pagkakaroon tayo ng cross multiplication. Y is equal to 77.4 sine 79. Using your calculator, type 77.4 sine 79. So the y component is 73.23 meter per second squared. So next, we find the x component. So cosine 79 is equal to adjacent, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is 77.4. So cross multiplication. X is equal to 77.4 cosine 79. So using your calculator, type 77.4 cos 79. Then the final answer is 25 meter per second squared. So in this problem, the x component is 25 meter per second squared, the y component is 73.23 meter per second squared, and the resultant is 77.4 meter per second squared with the angle of 79 degrees south of west. So now let's proceed to the addition of vectors using our previous problems. So this is problem number 2 and 3. So meron na tayong nakuhang x and y components for the problem number 2 and meron na rin tayo sa problem number 3. So ang gagawin lang natin is i-add lang natin. So 46.77 plus 25 is equal to 71.77. Then this one 17.67 plus 73.23 is equal to 90.19. So kapag nakuha na natin yung x and y component ng ating resultant, proceed na tayo sa pagkuha ng resultant. First, let's redraw the result or the result from the addition of vectors. So now we have the resultant na kunin natin yung value. Then from the previous problems, you have the total y component of 90.9, then x component 71.77. So ang gagamitin natin formula ay yung r is equals to square root of a squared plus b squared. So r is equal to square root of the y component, which is 90.9 squared plus x component 71.77 squared. So r is equal to 115.82. So kunin na naman natin yung kanyang angle from the horizontal. So angle theta. So to get the angle, we'll be using tangent function. So tangent theta is equal to 90.9 over 71.77. So theta is equal to, using your calculator, type shift tan, then the value you get from dividing the 90.9 over 71.77, which is 1.27. So arctan 1.27 is equal to 57.54 degrees. So this problem has a resultant of 115.82 at an angle of 57.54 degrees. Problem number 5, and extend. So a car weighing 12,000 Newton is parked on a driveway that is at 15 degrees angle with the horizontal. Find the components of a car's weight parallel and perpendicular to the driveway. The given R weight of the parked car is 12,000 Newton. The angle is 15 degrees with horizontal. So yung reference natin ay horizontal o yung x-axis. So yung required is x and y component of car's weight, A parallel to the driveway and B perpendicular to the driveway. First, we analyze the problem. So, yung car daw na nakapark ay mayroong 12,000 Newton na weight. Yung bigat niya ay 12,000 Newton. Nakapark daw siya sa driveway na may 15 degrees angle with horizontal. So, i-draw natin, no? So, kung i-illustrate natin, so, yung driveway ay yung parking niya ay 15 degrees from horizontal. So, ito yung parking. So, yung car niya ay nakapark. Ito. So, ang kukunin natin ay yung X and Y component with respect to the driveway. Ito. Ito yung reference natin, yung driveway. So, kapag pinag-uusapan ng weight ng isang bagay, palagi yung downward. Ano po? So, vertical. Yung weight niya ay ito. Unless stated sa problem kung ano yung direction ng weight. So, yung weight niya ay vertical. Para mas maintindihan, i-redraw natin yung illustration. So, sabi daw dito, ito yung ground, then ito yung driveway, ito yung weight. So, sabi daw, yung kukunin natin ay yung weight parallel. So, ibig sabihin, align. So, parallel to the driveway. At yung perpendicular to the driveway. So, kukunin natin ito, which is the parallel, and the perpendicular, o this one. So, pag sinabing perpendicular, mag-create yung dalawang line ng 90 degrees. So, this one is 90 degrees. So, since itong driveway ay 15 degrees from the horizontal, so, kahit mag-drawing tayo dito ng horizontal, this angle will be also 15 degrees. So, kung 15 degrees ang angle nito, ilang angle naman ito? So, let's say this is angle theta. So, angle theta is equal to, so, kung ito ay 90 degrees, and ito ay 15 degrees, ito ay, dapat itong angle na to, at ito, pag pinag-add mo ay 90 degrees din. So, ibig sabihin, angle theta is equal to, kung itong angle na to ay 15, so 90 minus 190 minus 15. 15. So, itong angle nito ay 75. So, meaning, 75. Kung ito ay 75 at itong angle na ito ay ano? So, 90 minus 75 is 15. So, this angle is 15. So, kaya nagkaroon ng 15 degrees. So, para hindi masyadong magulo, i-redo lang natin. Ano pa? So, this one, ito yung weight. Ito na. Ito yung X. ay yung y and x component with respect to the driveway, which is 15 degrees from the horizontal. So, paano natin makuha yung x and y component? Gagamit tayo ng sine and cosine function. So first, let's find the x component. So sine 15 is equal to opposite, which is the x. Then the hypotenuse, which is the 12,000. So cross multiplication, x is equal to 12,000 sine 15. So type 12,000 sin 15, and the answer will be 2,801 point something. So next, let's get the y component. So cosine 15 is equal to adjacent, which is 1. Then the hypotenuse, which is the 12,000. So y is equal to cross multiplication muna. Then y is equal to 12,000 cosine 15. So type 12,000 cosine 15. So the answer is y is 11,668 Newton. So, dun sa keto correction nyo, baliktad yung nakuha. Kasi, this is the right way on how to get the weight. Dun kasi, kinuha ay itong driveway. Siguro nalito lang, but this is the right process. And kung i-analyze mo yung answer, if ever baliktad siya, so mas magiging mataas yung x component. So, kung mas mataas ang x component kesa sa y component, ano kaya ang mangyayari sa kotse? So, if mas mataas yung pool pababa along the driveway, ang tendency ay aandar siya or mag-move siya pababa. So, dapat mas mamigat yung y component kesa sa x component para ma-maintain niya yung status niya sa parking. So, dapat mas mataas yung y component sa x component. Next problem is a woman on the ground sees an airplane flying at an angle of 35 degrees above horizontal. She gets into the car and by driving at 70 km per hour is able to stay directly below the airplane. What is the airplane's speed? So our given are the flying airplane at 35 degrees above horizontal, so the car's speed is 70 km per hour. So, let's analyze the problem. Ano po? So, nakakita raw yung babae ng airplane na lumilipad. Yung angle raw ay 35 degrees above horizontal. So, nung nag-drive na daw siya at nagpatakbo ng 70 km per hour ay nasasabayan niya yung airplane. Hindi siya naiiwan. So, ano daw yung airplane speed? No, yung gagamitin natin ay yung speed ng car as reference. Let's try to illustrate the given situation. So, this is the route of the plane, which is 35 degrees above the horizontal, and then this is the car na may speed na 70 km per hour. So, ang kukunin natin ay yung speed ng airplane, which is the resultant. So, kung makikita mo ito, so, the longest side. So, ang gagamitin natin yung formula ay yung dati, yung R is equal. Sorry, ang gagamitin natin formula ay, or function rather, is the cosine. Bakit cosine? Kasi meron tayong adjacent, meron tayong hypotenuse, which is what we are looking for, then meron tayong angle na 35 degrees. Cosine 35 is equal to adjacent, which is the 70, over the hypotenuse, which is the airplane speed. So next is cross multiplication. So P times cosine 35 is equal to 70. So para ma-eliminate natin yung cosine 35 at natira lang ay yung hinahanap nating P. So let's divide first both sides by cosine 35. So this one will be cancelled. So P is equal to 70 over cosine 35. So using your calculator, type 70 divided by cosine 35, or pwede naman in fraction. So 70 over cosine 35 is paras din naman yung sagot. So 82.1 km per hour yung speed ng plane. So our next problem is problem number 7 in extent. So a sailboat is headed due north at a forward speed of 6 knots. The pressure of the wind on its sails causes the boat to move sideways to the east at 0.5 knots. A tidal current is flowing to the southwest at 3 knots. What is the velocity of the sailboat relative to the Earth's surface? So our given are the sailboat headed due north at 6 km, wind pressure to east at 0.5 km, tidal current southwest at 3 km. So southwest, ibig sabihin in between. So 45 degrees. Required sailboat velocity. So let's analyze the problem first. So yung sailboat daw ay headed due north at a forward speed of 6 knots. So the pressure of the wind on its sails causes the boat to move sideways to the east at 0.5 knots o to the east. So yung pressure of the wind daw naging cause para mag-move yung boat sideways sa east na 0.5 knots. So another factor is the tidal current. So yung tidal current daw ay nag-flow southwest at 3 km. So ibig sabihin, factor siya para mag-move forward yung sailboat. So the required is the sailboat velocity. Given the factor, syempre maapektuhan yung velocity ng sailboat. So to get the resultant or the sailboat velocity, so yung kukunin lang natin is from the origin at yung kung hanggang saan o yung location ng boat, which is yung last location niya na apektuhan ng tidal current is southwest. So, andito na siya. Ito na yung final location. So, the values are, yung orange is yung 6 kN, yellow is 0.5 kN, yung blue is 3, and yung missing is the resultant or the velocity. So, if natatandaan nyo pa yung parts ng per quadrant ng Cartesian coordinate plane, so pag x-axis, then pa-right siya, it's positive, yung x. So, yung x niya ay positive, at yung y-axis niya naman is upward. So, yung y-axis niya ay positive din. Sa second quadrant is yung x niya ay pa-left, ibig sabihin negative. Pag yung y niya naman is upward, so positive. So, the third quadrant, or this one, yung x niya ay towards left, so it's negative. Then yung y niya is downward, which is also negative. Then the fourth quadrant, yung x niya ay towards right, so it's positive, but the y-axis is downward, so it's negative. So first, let's get the x and y component of each vectors. So yung una is due north. So yung due north natin ay yung ax natin. So since pa-north lang naman siya, so yung x natin ay remain at 0. Then yung ay ay 6. Kasi nagkaroon ng north movement towards north na 6. Kaya siya nagkaroon ng value. So, the second factor is the wind pressure. So, yung bx niya naman, this one, so since nagkaroon ng movement towards east, so merong bx is equals to 0.5. However, when it comes to vy, so wala namang movements na nangyari with respect to the y-axis, kaya 0. So for the current, so meron tayong angle. So because yung current natin is diagonal, so it will form a angle. So first quadrant, so meron tayong 90. So yung reference niya ay this one. So from x-axis positive, okay, so meron tayong 90 degrees plus second quadrant, so 90 degrees. Then mag-stop siya since yung direction ng current ay southwest, so dito siya papunta. Ano po? Southwest. So dito siya papunta sa southwest or sa third quadrant. So since sa third quadrant siya and nasa in-between siya, so merong 45 degrees. Kasi 90 divided by 2 is 45. So 90 from first quadrant plus 90 second quadrant, then 45 sa third quadrant, meron tayong total angle na na-generate sa 225 degrees. Pwede na naman natin kunin lang is, like for example, pwede natin 45. 45. However, kailangan nating tandaan kung saan yung position o yung direction. So, since negative, yung x-axis niya ay negative at yung y-axis niya ay negative din, so merong variation sa magiging sagot natin. if hindi natin i-consider yung position or yung direction ng vector. So, Cx is equal to 3 cosine 225 is equal to negative 2.22, or we can use cosine 45 naman. No? Cx is equal to 3 cosine 45. However, our answer will be positive 2.12. So, pwede naman maging 2.12. Then, i-take note na lang natin na negative yung x niya. So, pag i-drawing na natin siya is negative siya. And then, Cy is equal to 3 sine 225 is equal to negative 2.12, or we can use 45 degrees. So, 3 sine 45 is equal to 2.12. So, parehas din naman kasi dito sa drawing natin ay negative. So, take note na lang natin na yung 2.12 ay negative with respect to the quadrant. So, sa quadrant or yung direction ng third vector. So, to get the total, our resultant x and y components, i-add lang natin yung a, b, and c. So, yung ax natin, since it is 0, so 0, yung bx natin is 0.5, so 0.5, and then yung cx natin na negative. Okay, take note of the negative. So, pag in-add natin, magiging yung rx niya is negative 1.71 kN. So, the negative sign is very important kasi kapag re-knowing natin siya at hindi natin alam yung kung positive or negative, magkakamali yung direction natin. So, the answer for our x component is negative 1.71 kN. Then, the ry is equal to ay plus by plus cy. So, yung ay natin ay 6, yung by natin ay 0, yung cy natin is negative 2.12. Kaya, pag in-add natin, magiging ry is equal to 3.88 kN. So, positive naman siya. So, ibig sabihin, yung rx niya or yung x is towards left or nasa left second quadrant or third quadrant. Then, the ry niya is 3.88, or yung ry niya ay nasa upper. Okay, so upper quadrant. So, kung yung rx niya ay negative at yung ry niya ay positive, ibig sabihin yung position or yung direction niya ay towards northwest. This one. So, if we have the y component, then we have x component. We can simply use the formula r is equal to square root of a squared plus b squared, or we can substitute the given value. So, negative 1.77 squared plus 3.88 squared, then square root natin. So, the answer is r is equal to 4.26 kN. To get the direct, next, let's discuss describing motion. The first one is the distance and displacement. So, ano nga ba yung pinagkaiba ng distance sa displacement? Yung distance, yun yung total traveled. So, from position 1 to position 2 to position 3, then to position 4. Yung displacement naman ay yung distance lang galing sa origin towards the final destination. So, kung dito, meron tayong distance 1, dito, distance 2, and this one, distance 3. So, sa distance, sa total distance, i-add lang natin kaya meron tayong 45. So, sa displacement naman, kukunin lang natin yung galing sa origin hanggang sa final position. Kaya naging 5. The next is the speed and velocity. So, yung pinagkaiba ng speed sa velocity ay yung speed is scalar quantity while the velocity is a vector quantity. Meaning, yung speed walang direction. So, parehas lang naman yung formula nila. However, sa speed, gagamitin natin is yung distance traveled while in velocity, displacement. Pero may ibang problem na yung speed formula ay ginagamit din sa velocity. So, speed is equal to distance traveled over time of travel. So, yung distance travel is kung gaano kalayo mo na-travel at kung ilang oras mo natapos yung distance. While in the velocity, it is equal to change in position over time. Or velocity is equal to displacement over time, or simply says at V is equal to D over T. So let's have an example. Chim traveled for 0.75 hours using his newly purchased car and arrived in Karamoan, which is 50 kilometers from his initial destination. Determine the average velocity of Chim's car. So the given is time is equal to 0.75 hours, distance is 50 kilometers. So required is velocity. So our formula for velocity is distance over time. So the distance is 50 kilometers. Then the time traveled is 0.75 hours. So the velocity of Jim's car is 66.7 kilometers per hour. Next is the acceleration. So acceleration is equal to change in velocity over time. So change in velocity, final velocity minus the original velocity. Yung pagbabago sa velocity during the whole travel. So over time. So in acceleration, we have three formulas for uniform acceleration equations. So the first one is final velocity is equal to initial velocity plus acceleration times time. So the second one is the distance is equal to initial velocity multiplied by time plus 1/2 times acceleration times time squared. So the third one is velocity squared is equal to initial velocity squared plus 2 times acceleration times distance. where Bf is final velocity, Vi is initial velocity, D is displacement of the particle or the distance, A is the acceleration, then T is for time. So, paano natin malalaman kung saan gagamitin itong mga formula? So, dito, titignan muna natin sa problem yung mga given. So, if the given is initial velocity and acceleration, time, at yung iniingi ay final velocity or kahit alin ang iniingi, basta yung given ay andito, yung gagamitin natin ay the first equation. So, kung ang given naman ay initial velocity, distance, time, acceleration, so ito naman yung gagamitin natin. So, kung makikita nyo, wala rito yung final velocity. Ano po? So, kapag walang final velocity at ito yung mga hinahanap, so pwede itong gamitin. The third one is, meron kang velocity, initial velocity, acceleration, and distance. So, kung andito yung hinahanap at yung mga given ay andito, ito yung gagamitan. And may mga problem naman na combination. So, gagamitin mo na ito para makuha ito. Ano po? So, depende sa problem. So, let's have some examples. So, an object at 100 meter per second accelerates at a rate of 1.2 meter per second squared. What will be the velocity of the object after 100 seconds? So, our given are initial velocity is 100 meter per second, acceleration of 1.2 meter per second squared, time 100 seconds. The required is the final velocity after 100 seconds. Our solution is, so kung titignan natin yung given, so meron tayong given na 100 meter per second, which is the initial velocity. So sa equation 1, meron initial velocity. Equation 2, meron din. Equation 3, meron din. So, pwede silang gamitin. So, how about our next given? So, meron tayong acceleration. So, acceleration, this one. So, lahat merong acceleration. The next one is time. So, ang may time is itong equation 1 and equation 2. Sa equation 3, wala. So, x na natin yung equation 3. So, wala nang ibang given. So, dito sa equation 2, meron tayong given na distance, which is walang value dito sa, or hindi given dito sa problem number 2. Kaya, hindi natin pwedeng gamitin yung equation 2. So, yung natira na lang na pwede natin gamitin ay yung equation 1, which is final velocity is equal to initial velocity plus acceleration multiplied by time. So, substitute the given value. So, initial velocity is 100 meter per second. Acceleration of 1.2 meter per second squared multiplied by 100 seconds, which is the time. So, multiply this to magiging 120. Then, may second siya, Then ito squared, so matitira na lang ang isang second. Then, initial velocity of 100 meter per second plus 120 meter per second. So, our final answer is meron tayong final velocity na 240 meter per second. So, yun lang kung paano gamitin yung tatlong formula. Mag-eliminate lang tayo kung ano yung given value. So, that's it. See you sa next topic. Huwag mahihiyang magtanong kung may mga hindi naintindihan. Bye-bye!